When most people think of ancient Greece, they picture philosophers, mighty warriors, and grand temples. But what was life actually like for ordinary people? The period we call ancient Greece lasted for thousands of years, from early farming communities to the Roman conquest in 30 BCE. During that time, Greek culture gave the world democracy, philosophy, theatre, and the Olympic Games. Yet most Greeks weren't famous thinkers or legendary heroes. They were farmers, fishermen, craftsmen, merchants and sailors trying to make a living. And their daily lives might surprise you. Ancient Greece had a warm, dry climate, much like modern Greece, so homes were designed to stay cool rather than warm. Most people lived in simple houses built from mud bricks and wood with clay-tiled roofs. Poor families often had just a few rooms, while wealthy households lived in larger homes built around central courtyards. Furniture was basic, even among the rich. Wooden chests stored possessions, while beds and couches were made with wooden frames and woven rope. Large windows were uncommon. Instead, homes used small openings and shutters to keep out the heat of the Mediterranean sun. Some wealthy Greeks even enjoyed an early form of central heating. Hot air from a furnace was directed beneath floors and through walls, allowing certain rooms to stay warm during winter. While impressive, the system was expensive and required constant maintenance. Greek children played with many toys that would look familiar today. Archaeologists have found evidence of yo-yos, dolls, rattles, hoops, toy animals, and balls made from cloth or inflated animal bladders. Boys from wealthy families often began their education around age 7. They learned reading, writing, mathematics, music, and physical training. Most children, however, grew up learning practical skills needed for daily life. Many would become farmers, fishermen, sailors, or craftsmen. Girls were usually taught at home by their mothers. They learned cooking, weaving, household management, and child-rearing rather than receiving formal schooling. Life expectancy was much shorter than today, and childhood could be harsh. Infant mortality was common, and families often faced difficult decisions in times of poverty. Bread was the foundation of the Greek diet. People also ate olives, vegetables, fruit, nuts, cheese, fish, eggs, and barley porridge. Because so many Greek communities lived near the sea, seafood was extremely popular. One food stood above all others: olives. Olive trees were among a family's most valuable possessions. Their fruit could be eaten directly, while olive oil was used in cooking, lighting lamps, religious rituals, and even cosmetics. Meat was far less common than many people imagine. Most families ate it only occasionally, while wealthy Greeks enjoyed it more regularly. Wine was popular throughout Greece, but it was usually mixed with water before drinking. Consuming undiluted wine was often considered uncivilized. Ancient Greece was largely dominated by men. In many city-states, women had limited legal rights and little political influence. Married women were generally expected to manage the household, raise children, prepare food, and oversee domestic work. In Athens, respectable women often spent much of their lives within the home. Wealthy women could be especially restricted, sometimes needing a male relative or servant to accompany them outside. Marriage was usually arranged by families rather than chosen by the couple. Girls often married in their early teens, while husbands were frequently much older. Yet Greek women were not entirely absent from public life. Some owned businesses, managed property, worked as traders, or became respected poets, philosophers, and scholars. Women such as Sappho became famous throughout the Greek world for their writings. Like many ancient civilizations, Greece relied heavily on slavery. Enslaved people worked in homes, farms, workshops, mines, and aboard ships. Some were prisoners captured during wars, while others were born into slavery. To most Greeks, slavery was considered a normal part of society. Even many of the philosophers celebrated today accepted its existence. Conditions varied greatly. Household slaves often lived better lives than those forced to work in dangerous mines or perform brutal physical labor. While some owners treated enslaved people kindly, slavery remained a system in which human beings were treated as property. One of the biggest misconceptions about ancient Greece is that it was a single nation. In reality, Greece was made up of dozens of independent city-states, each with its own government, laws and customs. The most famous were Athens and Sparta. Athens became known for trade, culture, philosophy and democracy. Citizens debated laws, attended theatres and studied under some of history's greatest thinkers. However, Athenian democracy was limited. Only adult male citizens could vote. Women, slaves and foreigners had no political voice. Sparta was very different. Spartan society focused heavily on military strength. Boys underwent rigorous training from a young age, preparing for a life of discipline and warfare. Unlike many other Greek women, Spartan women enjoyed greater freedoms. They could own property, receive education, and participate in athletic training. While Athens became famous for ideas, Sparta became famous for soldiers. One of ancient Greece's most enduring legacies is the Olympic Games. The first recorded Olympics took place in 776 BCE at Olympia. Originally, the Games featured a single foot race. Over time, wrestling, boxing, chariot racing, and many other events were added. The Olympics were more than a sporting competition. They were a religious festival honoring Zeus. During the Games, rival city-states agreed to temporary truces so athletes and spectators could travel safely. Victorious athletes became celebrities. Their hometowns celebrated them with rewards, statues, and public honours. The Games continued for centuries before being abolished during Roman rule. More than 1,400 years later, the Olympic Games would be revived and eventually grow into the global event we know today. Ancient Greece disappeared long ago, but its influence never truly vanished. Its ideas helped shape modern democracy, philosophy, science, literature, architecture and sport. Behind the famous philosophers and legendary battles were millions of ordinary people raising families, working hard, sharing meals and building communities. In many ways, their world was very different from ours. In others, it was surprisingly familiar.